I think one theme that comes up that I do think is useful and thinking through is this idea of what is love, and is love selfish or is it not? And are we devouring people with our love?
Welcome to Proofread, a podcast to help you read more of what you love and less of what you don't.
Welcome to Proofread. I'm Tyler. With me, as always, is
Kacy.
And we are your co-hosts or fellow travelers through the world of books, right?
That's right.
Yeah, as we like to say, we want to help people read books they want to read. Right?
Exactly. Not everything is worth your time.
Not everything's worth your time, right? We spend a lot of time thinking about books, thinking about writing. We both teach writing, and this podcast is designed to get you thinking about what should I pick up next? Today we're doing one. Tell me, dear listener, have you had this a friend, a family member, or a coworker who has said, you got to read this book, right? So for me, we have at work an annual Christmas party. And what we do at the annual Christmas party is everybody brings a favorite book for a gift exchange.
Fun.
And we do the pass it around in a circle and you get to go home with a new book. And I have one coworker who always brings this book. She's always like, you have to read this book. You have to read this book. But the book we're talking about today is Till We Have Faces by Clive Staples Lewis. Or Jack, as his friends called him. Right?
Or C.S. Lewis,
or C.S.
as most
Lewis,
people
as
know
we
him.
all call him. So C.S. Lewis wrote Till We Have Faces. This is his last, it's a myth retold. It's a retelling of the myth of Cupid and Psyche. It's kind of interesting. C.S. Lewis is, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, but is quite famous for the Chronicles of Narnia series, which is a children's fantasy series. He also was a Christian writer. He did a lot of things like the Screwtape Letters,
Mere Christianity.
He's British, kind of a big presence in that mid 20th century.
Good friends with Tolkien.
Good friends with Tolkien.
Tolkien.
Yes, J.R.R. Tolkien. So this book is interesting because it's not a children's book, right? But it is fiction, and he's working on a myth that he's retelling. And C.S. Lewis, of course, was an English professor. He did a lot of literary criticism things in addition to his fiction. But he was always interested in this myth. And he talks about how he tried some poetic retellings of it, kind of throughout his life. So he says at one point, I've kind of just thought about this myth for years and years. And then ultimately he turned to fiction and kind of did a retelling of it in fiction form. The myth of Cupid and Psyche is not one I was intimately familiar with. How about you, Kacy?
Yeah, I barely remembered it from a college class.
Oh, nice. So in this book, what we have is a retelling of Psyche's older sister. Right?
Yes.
So she narrates the story, or it's narrated from her perspective.
Yes, and her older sister is very ugly. That's one of the main things about her.
The narrator here.
Yeah, the narrator, Orual, because Psyche is so beautiful. A big part of this character is that she's really, really ugly. Everyone thinks she's so ugly. It's so mean.
Yeah. So let's get down to business. Everyone's just on the edge of their seats wanting to know, read or skip here.
Okay.
Kacy, are we ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3.
Skip. Okay. I got a lot of baggage with this book.
Oh, yeah.
And
let's unpack here.
Do you
for
want
a
me
moment.
to
Let's
start?
unpack for a moment, Kacy.
Because I'm interested to know why you would skip. But
I didn't say skip. I said.
Oh, Okay,
Yeah.
I used to love this book, and I always used to recommend this book.
Oh,
Okay,
I didn't know your history with this book.
I read this book.
I thought this was a coworker suggestion. We have a different framing now for the pod.
It's basically like I'm Orual, the ugly one, and I read this in real time with her. She starts when she's younger, and I read this when I was a 16-year-old girl. I had this book foisted upon me by a much older man who wanted me to read it. And
a much older love interest.
Yes. And now I'm an old lady. I'm an older lady. I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm like Orual, the second half of this. She writes at the end of her life, and she's like, oof, all that stuff. I was like defending myself from the gods. Here's what I think now. That was kind of like me reading this.
Yeah.
And
so there's a part 1 that is 80% of the book, and then there's a part 2 that's 20% that she's telling.
It's a little bit of a reflection and kind of how it ends. I just was like, oh, I love this book. Oh, Tyler wants to read this book. I am a huge C.S. Lewis fan. I've read everything he's written, and pretty much everything. He was super formative for me in terms of religion, he's a great Christian apologist. He gives a voice to a lot of things as I was like forming my own ideas about religion and like getting a testimony of what I believe is real and true. And when I read this, the casual misogyny in this book from my hero, C.S. Lewis, it hurt me on behalf of the 16-year-old girl who read this.
Yeah.
And it gave me the creeps and I didn't like it.
And you're saying that in a sense of it's not like he's just depicting an ancient time full of misogyny. No. You think that it's coming through from the writer?
I think so. Yeah. Did you?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it isn't a point about that. I think I get the points that he's making. That is just happening. And I was like, I hate to see it coming from this guy. I love this guy. I still love him.
When you're thinking about this, Kacy, are you thinking about like the character's casual, like, oh, my wife has died in childbirth and I'm going to find another wife? Or what are some of the things that are standing out to you?
Some of the examples are just the way women are viewed. Like, it's just a reflection of the times.
Like he's waiting to have a son.
Yeah.
He has these.
So when you have a son,
he hires a tutor.
Dismissive of women. And I know that, like, her dad is not supposed to be a real stellar character. And he's a big jerk.
Yeah.
But, like, everyone is. I don't think the Chronicles of Narnia are like that because Lucy and Susan are so awesome. So it's just, it isn't that it was that bad. I've read, like, a lot worse classic things you go back to and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how this is. It's just that for me, because I love C.S. Lewis so much and I just think he's so perfect and I all about his conversion and stuff, I was just like, oof, I hate hearing that from you. Yeah. Just the little that it has. It's certainly worth. So I said skip for very personal reasons.
Sure.
It's a good book. I don't think everyone will react to it the way I did, but I'm just telling you the truth.
Yeah. When you said there are things to love, what stands out to you as something like a?
I love the lessons in the end about bearing each other's burdens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. He's so beautiful. This is why I love him. And this is why I wish he'd been a little bit more enlightened in the way he talks about women. But it's okay.
Kacy, one thing that stood out to me is, and I think C.S. Lewis does this in some of his other fiction, where he tries to, in the midst of the story, put the reader in like a common scenario, right? A common scenario where you're thinking about faith in a certain way, you come up against some criticism in a certain way, and then you've come up. I didn't realize how like prominent this is in the later Narnia novels, where some of them are just really like common critiques of Christianity that the novel's like responding to, you know. But there's a moment in here I thought that he uses this myth to dwell on something, and it's this moment where the narrator, the older sister, we talked about like that people can't see this palace where she lives, right? But the older narrator for a moment thinks the older sister for a moment thinks she's glimpsed it.
Yeah, and she does see it.
Yeah, and she goes back, and she's trying to convince herself, did I see it, did I not? And she goes back and talks to this teacher, this skeptic, right, who's kind of always giving her the straight talk. And he says, you saw no such thing.
Yeah, you imagined it.
Yeah. And she says, you don't think, not possibly, not as a mere hundredth chance, there might be things that are real, though we can't see them. Certainly I do, such things as justice, equality, the soul, or musical notes. Oh, grandfather, which is what she calls him, I don't mean things like that. If there are souls, could there not be soul houses? He ran his hands through his hair with an old familiar gesture of teacher's dismay. Child, he said, you make me believe that after all these years, you have never even begun to understand what the word soul means. I know well enough what you mean by it, grandfather, but do even you know all? Are there no things, but what we see? Plenty. Things behind our backs, things too far away, and all things if it's dark enough. He leaned forward and put his hand on mine. I begin to think, daughter, if I can get that hellebore, yours had better be the first dose, he said. I had half a thought at the outset of telling him about the Furley, my glimpse of the palace, but I couldn't bring myself to it. He was the worst hero in the world for such a story. Already he was making me ashamed of half the things I had been thinking, and now a more cheering thought came to me. Then perhaps, said I, this lover who comes to her in darkness is also part of the madness.
Okay, so I do love this character, Orual, because it's super relatable, especially because I'm like a believer, and I do believe in things that I can't see.
Yeah.
And she has this happen to her, and you kind of, then they make fun of her. This guy like talks her out of it. She talks herself out of it, which everyone has had that experience. You think, was this a miracle? Was this an answer? Did this happen? And like, probably just my brain doing it or whatever. But I like that in this one, so she has that, and I've had that, and I like that it shows how she goes through it. But in the end, you do find out that it is true because the palace is real and he's all real. So that's kind of neat for her to figure that out at the end, that she was right.
Yeah, but it puts you in this sense of within the midst of this myth is this person having to confront this question of faith, and they're kind of doing this the whole time. Where do we really need to sacrifice someone, or is the priest getting jealous that we're not giving enough fealty to their
we
God?
have plenty of stuff to sacrifice, even though we're all starving. We don't have any grain.
Yeah,
there's all these kind of critiques of how they're doing it, how they are trying to worship.
And I think this is the benefit of a C.S. Lewis kind of a move, is you get to, like, in the midst of a story, think through theological questions like that.
Yeah, and he knows both sides because he's been on both sides.
Yeah, and I think for me that is the value of a book like this is, I want to think through some things like this question of, are there things out there that I can't see? Is that silly? And then you get to go through the narrative with her.
And this was the last book he wrote, and he died as a believer.
I think this book is an interesting book to kind of think through some things with, right? So there's priests, and they follow certain rituals, and there's the daughter of the king, who's the narrator, and she's kind of deciding about whether, like, should we be doing this? Should we not? And then she has this tutor who's Greek, and he kind of is his line is kind of like, well, all these things are natural or they're not. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
He's the one that's giving the skeptical kind of approach to it. And so I think what's kind of interesting here is you have this tension between these perspectives throughout that I think is useful. It seems to me like he's using the myth just to talk about belief.
Yeah.
For me, I think the thing that I don't love is the sparseness of a myth retelling. What I mean is it's not like these aren't really fleshed out characters. There's not like real there's dialogue between them, but it's such a metaphor that you're kind of reading through. I find that not super compelling as a reading. So I kind of want to say there's a benefit to this kind of work, and I don't want to say skip it if you like that. If you're like, oh, I love thinking about myths and the lessons we can learn from myths, and C.S. Lewis comes in and he kind of adds some texture to this. Why would these women, convince their sister to do this thing that ends up kind of ruining her life? He kind of provides some motivation, and it kind of gets tied up in some questions of theology and some questions of love is a big theme here. So I think all of that is interesting. But in terms of a compelling story, I wasn't turning the page.
Yeah, if it weren't him is it a little bit belabored? If it's not just a story he thought of out of the blue to tell. He wants to do and I have, when I was decided, I was like, I'm going to say skip, which is weird because this morning in my backyard, I saw a white stag, a real one, and I thought, if this is a metaphor, C.S. Lewis, the white stag from Narnia. But I was like, nope, I'm going to skip it because I also think, in addition to just personal feelings about it, I don't know that we gained that much from the retelling of this myth, other than a couple of layers, which is interesting. But in a way, it makes the myth so much harder to take. And it's not a one-to-one correlation with Christianity, there's a Christ-like figure or whatever. Yeah. It's still an unfair judgment that this girl gets, even if someone else helps bear her burden. But it does ask the question, why am I punished so much for not having blind faith? Which is just an interesting thing to think about. And when she's young, she thinks that. I did everything right. I was so nice. I did this. But then as an adult, and I do like this too, she looks back on it and she's like, maybe I was a little jealous. Oh, I was really mean to this guy.
Well, that to me, I think, is the strongest point of what we get from this, is this moment where you get this whole story from this woman of this myth. She kind of tells her perspective on it. And then, like you said, in the second kind of part, you start to see oh, actually, I'm thinking, a couple things happen to her late in life that she realizes, I'm thinking about this differently. And I think one theme that comes up that I do think is useful in thinking through is this idea of what is love, and is love selfish or is it not? And are we devouring people with our love?
Yeah.
Right? And is it really about them or is it about me? Again, I guess I'm towing the same line here, which is an interesting story to think about some questions of faith, of love and how that plays out in our relationships.
Yeah, for part of it, I was actually thinking there's some things about parenting here, like this Orual she's kind of condescending. She thinks she knows better, but she is the older sister.
Yeah.
And she's like, do I need to go in with tough love here? Or should I just be like, and she gets as tough as you can. Or should I just be like, well, she's thriving and she seems to have her faculties.
Yeah.
She seems to know what's best for her. I mean, this is, parenting older children. This is how every day goes.
And she does what all good parents do, which is she turns to manipulation.
Yeah. She errs on the side of...
I'm going to totally manipulate this situation.
Too tough of love. Yeah. That's exactly right. So I thought about that too. I thought about is this, just leave it alone a little bit. Trust other people to make their own decisions. Let your kids kind of grow into who they are. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's all very complicated.
If you like C.S. Lewis, I think it's an important part of the C.S. Lewis canon that's not going to let you down as a sense of what is this?
It doesn't let you down. And
this?
It's a PG book. It's just like the Bible is PG. I mean, if you think the Bible is PG, there's nothing graphic. And of course, it's an older book. No swearing or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to read C.S. Lewis,
Ooh, yeah.
I really love the book, The Gift of Friendship. It's about him and Tolkien.
Oh, cool. I've never heard of it.
It's great. It talks about how they would get together and talk about things.
Nerd out.
They nerd it out so bad. But it's delightful. And it's really, really, I love that book.
Shelf.
Shelf.
Where would you put this? What shelf does this go on?
Women of a certain age might be traumatized to go back and read this book if they're in love with C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Well, is that the same shelf for you, I assume?
For me, this is on just the C.S. Lewis shelf, right? If you are a C.S. Lewis fan, and
your shelf is a little more plain than mine. Your shelf is so
Absolutely.
basic. Mine is so.
This is I've got Chronicles of Narnia, I've got The Weight of Glory, I've got Mere Christianity. I'm just gonna slot this up there on the C.S. Lewis shelf of.
Okay.
Here's another thing he did.
You've got a
that's
C.S. Lewis shelf. I've got a re-traumatized through classic literature shelf.
C.S. Lewis, Till We Have Faces.
You've been proofread.
You've been proofread. Come back when you have a face.
An ugly one.
This is the one you were interested
I know,
in,
I'm
C.S.
why
Lewis?
did he like this one so much?
What was it about it?
Proofread is a production of BYU Radio and is produced by Jeff Simpson with help from Erica Price, Becca Hurley, and Lisa Valentine Clark. Find us on YouTube at Proofread Podcast for video clips and more. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for spending your time with us today, and happy reading.